All right. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to Strait Science. Strait Science is actually on the road tonight at Shishmaref. We're currently in the Shishmaref multi-purpose room. My name's Gay Sheffield, and Strait Science is an evening science presentation series put on by UAF Northwest Campus on the road. Well, they're still in Nome, and UAF Alaska Sea Grant on the road right now. And it's very apropos. We're in Shishmaref. Shishmaref is one of the larger walrus harvest communities, and we're thrilled to be here tonight. And tonight, and Alaska Sea Grant, we are both UAF Alaska Northwest Campus and UAF Alaska Sea Grant are public servants for the Bering Strait region, which is the homeland and waters of the Inupiaq, Yupik, and St. Lawrence Island Yupik peoples. And tonight's speaker couldn't be more apropos. We have Vera Metcalf calling from Nome. She is the director of the Eskimo Walrus Commission at Kawarik, and also helping her talk about this subject is Joel Garlick Miller. Joel is a walrus biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and he is currently in Anchorage. So we are all over the Alaskan globe tonight on this call, which is great. And tonight's topic, again, we're going to hear about the Young Hunters Walrus Summit, navigating towards a bright future. With that, take it away, Vera. Thank you so much.
Well, I am Vera Metcalf, born and raised in Savunga on St. Lawrence Island, so I'm a Savungami. I moved to Nome here with my husband, Bob, who some of you know, and our son, who was born in Savunga in '79. So we've been here since '81, and my family have been very dependent on hunting and gathering of resources such as the Pacific walrus. And, you know, our ancestors thrived on the island for many years and were very dependent on many of the marine resources, as well as from the land and, you know, gathering plants and other resources in order to feed our families. So thanks to Gay, I have been, we've been working on, like what Gay said, on the Young Hunters Walrus Summit after postponing it for a couple of years because of COVID. And hopefully it'll happen in October, the first week of October, here in Nome at Northwest Campus's Grand Hall. I have a PowerPoint that I'd like to share with all of you so you get a better understanding of what the Eskimo Walrus Commission is, what the Hunter Summit will be about, some of the topics and issues that we will cover at the summit, as well as what are our goals for the next couple years. So I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint with all of you.
Looks good.
Okay. Can everyone see this?
Yes, it looks good. Perfect.
Okay. All right. So let me see. Can I move myself here? Okay. Here is our I talked about my family being from St. Lawrence Island, Savunga, but we also have neighbors in Chukotka who are, it's a shared resource, this Pacific walrus population. So we always try to include our neighbors, even though we're divided by this invisible line that separates us, but it's the same resource for many years for them. But as a Walrus Commission, I started working at the Walrus Commission. I've been there for 20 years now. I started in 2002, and I really enjoyed during this challenging work. And this map shows some of the communities that are members of the Eskimo Walrus Commission, from all the way from Utqiagvik down along the coast, Wainwright, Point Lay, Point Hope, Kivalina, Kotzebue, Shishmaref, where Gaius right now. We have Wales, Little Diomede, Brevik, Nome, King Island, Stebbins, Unalakleet, Gamble, and Savunga. We also have Macoriac on Nunavut Island, Quigillingok, and lastly, Manakotak at Bristol Bay region. So we cover about 5 regions, five areas. It's pretty large, but 19 commissioners serve on the Walrus Commission, and they're all appointed by their tribal organization. But and it is about Pacific walrus population management and conservation, which was a 1994 amendments to the Marine Mammal Protection Act. So we have been actively involved in the development of the idea of co-management. And there are some of my colleagues and mentors like Matthew Aya and Caleb Pungawi, who were both from Savunga, as well as Charlie Johnson, who of Nome, who really paved the way for this Walrus Commission to exist, and fought many challenges to ensure that the Walrus Commission exists. And we're still here. Our offices are located at Quirk in Nome, who handles our financial and accounting issues for us. But our mission is very simple. It is to protect the Pacific walrus conservation. And we have co-management goals that we focus on, and there are about 4 goals. And one is research. We want to ensure that we have full active participation in Pacific walrus research that would include indigenous knowledge or our knowledge, and involvement of collaborative production of co-production of research plans and reports, especially involving climate change impacts, which is a very hot topic nowadays for those of us living here in the Arctic. Our second goal is education. We have an ongoing effort to inform both our commissioners and external partners of culturally relevant and important knowledge and understanding of walrus and the environment that they live in, and that we all share. So we're always advocating to promote indigenous knowledge in a way to support active participation of our communities in conservation efforts, which is very important. Number 3 is we're connecting and convening. We bring hunters, communities, the state and federal agencies, and managers together for developing proper, successful co-management of the Pacific walrus population. And lastly, number 4, advocacy, providing leadership and capacity to represent Alaska Native interests and concerns for the health of this population and our shared environment and our right to food security concerns, indigenous food security. So 4 goals, basically. And what is the Young Hunters Walrus Summit? Well, it's a brief overview. We're collaborating with 19 members, communities, hoping to bring in participants between the ages of 18 to 29 from each community to gather here in Nome. It'll be a very intensive 3 days study, and we'll have presentations by a participant. Maybe possible opportunities will arise, and discuss, what threats are happening in management in this new Arctic we call. And Gay earlier mentioned HAB, so that's a new threat in our watch, our marine waters. We hope to bring in commissioners who are members of the Walrus Commission, other recognized community members that are knowledgeable about walrus hunting methods or indigenous resource management, indigenous knowledge. Hopefully they'll guide some of these young people. And the summit will be here in Nome, October 4th to 6th at Northwest Campus's Grand Hall. So this summit is basically made possible with grants from Bureau of Indian Affairs, good support, lots of support from COERC. We have two private foundations that are very interested in the outcomes of the summit, and that is Alaska Venture Fund and Alaska Community Foundation. So without these partners, we would not have been able to get this summit going. But those are our brief overview of what we hope to cover. Some of the goals, of course, is to remain fully engaged and active contributors to co-management, which is a daily task that I have to do just about every day, every week, co-management issues. And that involves marine mammals resources, because so much have changed over time since 1978, when the Walrus Commission was established. A lot of our hunters have provided for us and handed their hard-earned knowledge of to the next generation. So I think the economic and social condition in our communities have changed. Climate change is bringing new ecological threats to our waters and opening our homeland and waters to increasing activity. And right now, you know, national and international geopolitics are focusing their attention in our region. So hopefully this summit will allow us to discuss some of these threats and challenges, but of course, some of the opportunities to respond to future impacts of environmental changes in this new Arctic. So those are some of our goals. And hopefully some of the topics that we will cover will be Marine Mammal Protection Act, MMPA. It's a resource that I look at just about every day. You know, co-management regime is a big thing that we deal with just about every day, these issues. But just, you know, issues and regulations and considerations our hunters must become familiar with is large and, you know, seems to grow yearly. And we will be covering complex and some very sensitive topics like wasteful take, stricken loss, and raw ivory sales. Just some of those issues. Indigenous knowledge, Endangered Species Act. What is it? How does it affect Pacific walrus population? We will have someone that is very knowledgeable about UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples in relations to our food security. We have really good tribal harvest management plans out on St. Lawrence Island. We're going to be talking about research and co-production of knowledge, which is a big thing. And nowadays, what are the changes that are happening at the community level? How do we handle Facebook posts? How do we, use social media to promote our work? And of course, one of the issues that we've been dealing with is the ivory ban and the wildlife conservation concerns from various organizations. So various topics that we hope to cover, be a very busy 3 days here in Nome. And hopefully we'll come up with some products and outcomes. You know, as you can see from this list, the Walrus Commission hopes to incorporate the discussions and suggestions from the young hunters in our future planning. You know, I'm sure we'll turn this into some form of strategic planning. And of course, we hope to find ways to help connect with our future indigenous food providers, because some of these young people are already providing food in their communities. Along with this Young Hunter Summit meeting, we hope to have a follow-up session of a selected group of participants from this larger meeting in a strategic planning. And we will have the opportunity to review maybe recommendations from the summit to continue discussing toward developing specific strategies maybe and initiatives for the next steps to reaching the Young Hunters Summit goals. So and develop maybe specific proposals to involve a new generation of indigenous community leaders in Eskimo Walrus Commission activities and many projects that we are currently involved in. We haven't selected this gathering yet because all this will be dependent on this 3 days that will happen here in Nome in October. And finally, you know, the Walrus Commission has been around since 1978, and I really like this slide because it reminds us of the fundamental purpose of the Walrus Commission. That is, we're here to protect our right to harvest specific walrus and produce beautiful ivory artwork expressing our cultural connections with this resource. So, but this requires our communities to devote much time, effort, and commitment. Marine mammal hunting is a very communal effort out on St. Lawrence Island, and many of our families are organized into clans. So we often combine our resources and manpower to effectively, properly, and safely send our boats out to harvest these resources, often many miles away from home. So it's a lot of time and effort. And not only is harvesting these resources something that we do, but we have extensive cultural protocols to share or teach the next generation, and which really strengthens a community's traditional values. So those are all important things to remember why we're maybe looking forward to addressing some of these issues at the summit. And we really recognize everyone that provide for us in our communities, because like I say, it is a lot of work. It's not an 8-hour job. Sometimes our hunters are out there for hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, many miles away from home. And maybe it turns into sometimes unsafe environment, but that's their goal, is to provide food for our family and share it outside the communities. So, you know, one of our goals is to local self-regulation of walrus harvest management, helping to ensure our indigenous food sovereignty and security is there for us for many years, well into the future. So I just want to thank people that have been in the planning for this summit: Gay Sheffield from UAF MAP, Joe Garlic Miller, who will also is a co-presenter here. We have Daly Sambo Duro. She's the former Inuit Circumpolar Council chair. She's very knowledgeable about international laws and regulations. And we have Sierra Smith from Coeric. She's been a wonderful asset to the planning as we move along, because it takes a lot of effort to find applicants and secure meeting space, all those things that are behind the scene. And we have a facilitator, Tom Oklesic from Nome. He's on this call also, but he's been very great at keeping us focused and keeping us moving, because it takes a lot of work, time and effort. But I believe in the work. The summit came out as part of a dream that I had when I was attending Alaska Sea Grant advisory meeting, when we were talking about Young Fishermen Summit. And I thought to myself, why not have a similar summit with young people from our communities that are hunters already. So for more information, it's all here. You can call me or Sierra Smith. We also have an application. Our deadline is September 2. We're still looking for some applicants from Shishmaref, Savunga, Bristol Bay. So please share the form, and please encourage your young people to be part of this summit, because we're looking forward to listening to them and seeing what their hopes and dreams are of the future of this new Arctic that we're on. So with that, thank you. I will now turn this over to Joel from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Well, thank you, Vera. You could actually leave that slide up if you like, with the contact information for our guests. I don't have any slides. I do have some talking points that I'd like to share, though. First, just to introduce myself. Oops, let's see. I have got to change this. Yeah, so my name is Joel Garlick Miller. I am a walrus biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And I come from Canada. I did some graduate work up in Arctic Canada on walruses back in the early 90s, and came to Alaska thereafter, and I've been here for about 28 years now. And through my career, I've had the great honor and privilege of working with indigenous hunters from Alaska, Russia, and Canada, and most of my knowledge about walruses comes from these experts. It's been a real great job. I enjoy it immensely. I get to work closely with Vera and the Eskimo Walrus Commission on walrus co-management activities. And so Vera touched briefly on it, but just a bit of background about co-management for walruses in Alaska. The whole sort of formal framework for it comes from this Federal Marine Mammal Protection Act, which was a sweeping conservation act passed in 1972. And it sort of guides a lot of our management efforts for marine mammals in the States. The act recognizes the cultural and economic importance of marine mammal hunting to Alaska Native communities, and it provides for taking of marine mammals for subsistence and the manufacture and sale of handicrafts. And Vera mentioned that in 1994, there was a change to the act that's called, Section 119, but it authorizes essentially the development of formal co-management agreements between the federal government and Alaska Native organizations for the subsistence use of marine mammals. And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and EWC, well, we've been working on walrus management activities together since the late 1980s, and we have established a formal co-management relationship. We've worked on a lot of different projects together over the years. We've done well. We still have ongoing monitoring of subsistence walrus harvests here in Alaska. We've also had projects going over in Chukotka, Russia to gather this information. We've supported a number of biological studies to monitor the health and status of the walrus population. We've worked together to support hunter participation in walrus research and management efforts. And we've co-hosted the international meetings with Russian biologists and community leaders to discuss walrus conservation and management issues, because it is, as Vera mentioned, a shared stock. So, you know, some of our guiding principles that the EWC and Fish and Wildlife Service have sort of work under is we want to work collaboratively. We want to keep coastal communities informed and engaged in walrus management issues, provide opportunities for subsistence users to participate in research and management efforts, promote to the local conservation and management efforts. That's a really important thing for the future. And also incorporating Indigenous knowledge into management decisions and actions. At the summit, we will expand on quite a bit on what co-management is, what it can be, how people can become involved in it. And it's really a really critical, important topic because there are many challenges ahead for the Pacific walrus population. The population is large and healthy at the present time, but as all this audience knows all too well, there are some very profound ecological changes occurring in the Bering and Chukchi Seas. And we've seen that sea ice loss is driving significant changes in walrus distributions and habitat use patterns that are impacting both walruses and walrus hunters. So over time, we've seen and are expecting to increase use of coastal haulouts, and that's created a bunch of new set of conservation management issues with trampling mortalities that can affect the overall population. So some of this sounds a little bit gloomy, but I think approaching things in a spirit of hope, and part of the reason that this Young Hunter Summit is so important is that it's important to point out that the future of the walrus population has not been written. And there are things that we can do together collaboratively to help offset some of the potential impacts of climate change. One of our co-management priorities is to try to provide opportunities for walruses to transition in these habitat changes. And as they become more dependent on coastal areas, human activity across Arctic grows, we need to all work together to minimize disturbances and trampling mortalities. And rural communities are really leading the way on this effort. In recent years, walruses have been hauling out in incredibly large numbers, tens of thousands of animals on a barrier island across from the community of Point Lay. And this community has taken on a lead role really in monitoring and protecting the haulout for the past several years. They've done an amazing job at keeping human-caused disturbances and airplanes and boats and dogs and everything away from the haulout. And haulout mortality has been relatively low. Walruses are still able to go out and feed and come back and rest. And so it's been a really amazing conservation success story, demonstrating the effectiveness and importance of local management. And Vera touched on, you know, empowering and developing self-regulation of harvest. That's another area that shows remarkable promise for the future. Harvest levels in Alaska are sustainable, but with all these changes, you know, we all have to continue to work closely together to ensure the harvest remains sustainable into the future and for future generations of hunters. And so we've seen with EWC support, local communities stepping up, developing local management structures. Gamble and Savunga on St. Lawrence Island, they've established these traditional marine mammal advisory councils and are developing local hunting ordinances. We're very, very highly supportive of this and encouraged by this. And I think EWC and Fish and Wildlife Service are seeking funds. We've recently secured funds to help the tribes develop business plan strategy and stand up and support their tribal harvest management efforts. So these are the type of proactive management efforts that are going to be vitally important both for walruses and the people that depend on them. So this upcoming Young Hunter Summit is a great opportunity for the next generation of hunters and community leaders to learn more about this important resource, traditional values, traditional knowledge about walruses, hunting practices, but also how to become engaged in walrus management in Alaska. And so this is a bit of a plea. We really do need your help. I think all over Alaska, people talk about, Vera was mentioning the fisheries program, but a graying of the fleet. We need to create opportunities for young leaders to gain this knowledge and engage in the process. And this Young Hunter Summit is that opportunity. So to the listeners here on this podcast or presentation, I really do appeal to your help to get the word out about this summit. You know, we really want to create a great opportunity for good young people to step up. I'm really looking forward to the summit. I hope to meet some of you there. That's about all I have to say. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
I should add, Gay, that we will have COVID mitigation plans on hand. We're trying to ensure our applicants are also fully vaccinated. And we'll have masks available and testing kits for participants to use, because we know that this threat is still around. So thanks to Tom, he came up with that plan.
And it's very thorough and will protect everyone, I think, the COVID mitigation plan for the meeting. All right, there have been people trying to join in, so know that this, I am not sure what the glitch is, but there were KNOM radio and several other people were trying to get in, so take that as just a glitch in the system tonight. Rick Toman has a question for you, Vera, in the chat, and that is, has the summit and application been shared through ARCUS and the Sea Ice for Walrus channels?
You know, that's a great point. Thanks, Rick. We will. I forgot that I serve on those committees, so we will share those right away and make sure they have information for the application form too. Thank you, Rick.
And great earrings.
Oh, yeah, I know. Thank you, Peter.
For me, I'm excited for the summit because I think that with the speakers that you're getting, and I hope that the products that will come out of this from using the voices of the youth, because one thing now that I'm gray and my fleet is graying, I'll have to say, is that it seems like there are so many issues, and somehow in the generation of federal and state management in leadership positions, they're very far removed from, or have been far removed from, Western Alaska. And I think that hearing from the youth that are actively hunting, that have fresh and new ideas and questions, I think this will be really educational, your concept, not just for the youth, but also for people who are in leadership positions that may not be integrating in just because of the what do they call it? The tyranny of distance, I guess, from a position back on the East Coast of the United States, per se, something like that. I think those words and that will be captured during that summit will provide some maybe some awareness that will be novel and new and hopefully well received. Certainly the issues that we're facing out here are quite numerous, and I think you mentioned those both at an environmental, ecological, industrial level, which I think everyone in the Arctic is experiencing. So I think getting the youth's take on that would be wonderful. So I'm very much looking forward to the exchange of information, but also getting that report and getting some of those new ideas. I think there'd be some real good energy there for everybody.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we've had some interest from Greenland and Canadian youth through the Inuit Circumpolar Council, but I was telling them that we're going to just start within Alaska first, and let's see what happens. Maybe in the future there'll be an international Young Hunters Summit because of so much interest from our other Arctic neighbors.
And from other, if you're a walrus hunter, you're a beluga hunter, you're a bearded seal hunter, and I think maybe that might help step up some of the other and other co-management organizations to maybe reach out and start. I think it's really exciting. There is a question from Peter Lowry with the Nome Nugget, and that is, so this is a question because I'm ignorant to the topic, but are there a lot of young walrus hunters? How many people do you expect in this summit? Good questions, Peter.
Well, every community has a hunter because we're 19 communities that are members of the Walrus Commission. We're only expecting 19 young folks to join us at the summit. That's how much we wrote the grant for. And, I wish we could bring in more, but I think it's a capacity issue at the campus too. We just don't want to turn it into a huge event. But there's active hunting everywhere. Not only marine mammals, but other resources. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say hunters start very young, but I think there's an age category you're looking for in this particular Young Hunters Summit, right? I think it was 18. You have to be in a sort of an adult, 18 to, is it 30?
Right. And all these photos are from my family because they're actively doing this just about every day when they have a chance to. So.
Yeah, and Peter, just so you're aware, because I know you're somewhat new to the region, but about, I would say 90, I would feel very comfortable saying 97, 98% of the US harvest of walrus occurs in the Bering Strait region. As you can see, walrus are important everywhere in the Bering Strait region, especially along the in the strait. As you get further west into the sort of Chukotkin currents, it's walrus love it here. And in fact, because I think we have ice coming down right now on the west side between Big Diomede and Dezhnev, there have been large numbers of walrus off the southern side of Little Diomede recently, several hundred. So there's walrus in the area, right in the area. So, all right. With that, any other questions? Good to see you on, Carol. Do you have any pictures or any questions or comments?
Hi, Gay. No, this is just so interesting. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's nice to be back hearing about walruses after so many years. It's great to hear it.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, we better bring it to a close. I forgot to say, put some love for Vera and Joel in the comment box. It's never easy being a straight science speaker.
This is my first Strait talk, so thank you, Gay, for pulling this together. I've heard so many great presentations through this Strait talk, so.
You're
Yeah,
very kind.
thank
Well,
you, Gay, for creating the forum. And yeah,
yeah,
again, you know, getting the, this is more an introduction about this great event. So to folks here, if we could appeal to you to, you know, if you know interested people in your community that hasn't applied, it would be great to. This is a great opportunity. So I'm really looking forward to this meeting.
all right. Oh, thank you, Peter. If you look in the
Yeah.
chat box, Vera, Peter's got a good comment. And I have to say, I'm here at Shishmaref. We had a very long meeting today about one of the challenges that walrus are facing right now in our region. And so I think it went long, and I think everyone is thinking about those thoughts. So we're looking forward. They're very interested in I don't think they're joining tonight, but they're and maybe they are, but they're stuck, like some other people got a little bit stuck outside. I don't know if that's when we were changing things around, Joel. But anyway, that's it for right now. Our next Strait science speaker will be on September 15th at this point. And that will be Don Anderson. And he's the leader of the expedition that is currently out doing harmful algal bloom work. And he will be giving us a complete report, which will be very interesting for the Bering Strait region, as they are getting some rather surprising and shocking, in some cases, results regarding different kinds of algae in our waters and some of the numbers and effects of that. So September 15th, mark your calendar. That will be one not to miss as well. And that will have repercussions for all of our communities and some of our marine life as well. So we'll have a little bit more information as to the event that's ongoing in this region. With that, thank you all for coming.